Sarah Bennett's fingers had stopped shaking an hour ago. That scared her more than the cold. Emma wasn't crying anymore either. The child just stared, blue-lipped and silent, as the blizzard buried their wagon wheel by wheel. Sarah pressed her daughter's face against her chest, trying to share warmth that wasn't there. 7 days since Kentucky. 5 days since food. 3 days since Calvin's men rode past close enough to hear but too drunk to notice tracks already filling with snow. She closed her eyes and prayed for morning, though she no longer believed it would come. Before we continue Sarah and Emma's story, if you believe in second chances and the kind of love that defies impossible odds, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Stay with us until the end to see if they survive this brutal Wyoming winter, and drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We want to see how far this story travels. Now let's find out what happens when a desperate widow meets a rancher who doesn't ask questions. The horse smelled them before Jake Mercer saw anything. The mare's ears pricked forward, nostrils flaring as she pulled against the reins. Jake squinted through the snow. Dawn barely breaking gray over the white plains. Nothing moved except the wind. "Easy, Belle." He loosened his grip, letting her pick the direction. She walked 20 paces north, then stopped, pawed at a snowdrift taller than Jake's waist. He dismounted, boots sinking deep. The cold bit through his coat immediately. 20 below, maybe worse. He'd been checking fence lines since before sunrise, looking for breaks from last night's storm. Belle pawed again, insistent. Jake waded closer, saw brown fabric, a woman's coat. He dropped to his knees and dug ice crystals, cutting his bare hands. More fabric, a face, blue-tinged skin, closed eyes. "Ma'am." He shook her shoulder. Nothing. Dug deeper. Found a second body underneath, smaller. A child. Jesus! Jake yanked off his coat and wrapped it around the little girl. She was colder than the snow itself. He lifted her with one arm, then grabbed the woman's collar with his free hand and pulled. Dragged them both 10 feet to where the drift was shallower. The woman's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved soundlessly. "Can you hear me?" Jake laid the child across the woman's chest. "Ma'am, I need you to wake up." Her eyes opened, green but unfocused, lost. "Emma," she whispered. The word came out cracked and broken. "My Emma." "Your daughter." Jake touched the child's neck, found a pulse, faint as moth wings. "When did you eat last?" The woman tried to speak again. Her jaw moved, but nothing came out. Her eyes rolled back. Jake looked at Belle, then at the sky. His ranch was 4 miles southwest. Town was 6 miles east, but Doc Henderson wouldn't be there until afternoon, probably not in this weather. The woman and child wouldn't last an hour, wouldn't last 20 minutes. He lifted the child first. She weighed nothing, bones and cold skin wrapped in rags that used to be a dress. He settled her across Belle's neck, then heaved the woman up behind her. She slumped forward, barely conscious. "Stay with me." Jake swung up behind them both, one arm around the woman's waist, the other holding the child. "Just stay awake." The ride back was the longest 4 miles of his life. The woman drifted in and out. Twice she mumbled something that sounded like, "Don't let him," and "has to run." The child never moved. Jake's ranch appeared through the snow like a ghost. The cabin's chimney smoke, the only proof anything lived in this frozen hell. He dismounted fast, grabbed the child, kicked the cabin door open. The fire was low, but still burning. He laid the girl on the floor right in front of it, wrapped her in every blanket he owned. Ran back for the woman. She had fallen sideways off Belle. Lay in the snow, not moving. No. Jake scooped her up. She was heavier than the child, but still too light. He carried her inside, laid her beside her daughter. Her skin was ice. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. He'd seen frostbite before. She'd lose fingers if he didn't work fast, maybe more. Jake stripped off her wet coat. Her dress underneath was soaked through. He grabbed a dry shirt of his own, turned his back, and changed her quickly, no time for modesty. Did the same for the child. His shirts hung on them like tents. Then he did what his father taught him during the winter of '64. Wrapped them both tight together, skin to skin, the child tucked against the woman's chest. Piled blankets over them. Heated water on the stove. Added whiskey and honey. Forced a spoonful between the woman's lips. She choked, coughed, but swallowed. That's it. Jake gave her another spoonful. Drink. Her eyes opened again, more focused now. She saw him, saw the cabin. Her hand moved weakly, searching until it found the child beside her. Emma. Her voice barely existed. She's breathing. Jake touched the girl's forehead. Warming up. You both are. The woman stared at him. Snow still melted in her hair, running down her temples like tears. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Who are you? Jake Mercer. This is my place. Why? She stopped, swallowed. Why did you help us? Jake sat back on his heels. The question surprised him. You were dying in my pasture. Didn't seem complicated. Men don't just help. Her voice was stronger now. They want something. I want you alive. That complicated enough? She studied his face, searching for lies maybe, or worse. Jake kept his expression plain. After a moment she looked away. I'm Sarah Bennett. This is Emma. You come from Kentucky. Her eyes snapped back to his, sharp now, scared. How did you... Your daughter's coat. Jake nodded at the pile of wet clothes steaming near the fire. Has a school patch, Harlan County. Sarah's jaw tightened. She pulled Emma closer. We're not going back. Didn't ask you to. Men will come looking. Let them. Sarah's breath caught. She studied him again, and this time Jake saw something different in her eyes. Not just fear, something calculating, measuring. You don't know what you're saying. I know you were buried in snow 5 days' walk from anywhere. Jake poured coffee from the pot that was always on his stove. I know that wasn't weather luck. That was running. He handed her the cup. She took it with shaking hands, wrapped both palms around it like it was gold. If somebody's chasing you, Jake said, I figure they earned whatever greeting they get when they arrive. Sarah drank. The coffee was burned and bitter, but she drank like it was salvation. When she finished, she looked up at him. Calvin Bennett is my husband's brother. He wants Emma. Says she's his responsibility now that James is dead. Your husband? Mine collapse. Year ago. Sarah's voice went flat. James owned a claim. Small one. Not worth much. But it's Emma's now. Legal inheritance. And Calvin wants it. He wants her. Sarah's grip tightened on the cup. Showed up 3 weeks after the funeral with papers. Court-appointed guardianship. Said I was unfit. Said I couldn't provide. Jake crossed his arms. Were you? I was a school teacher. Pride flashed through the exhaustion. I taught 30 children their letters. I kept books for the mining office. I wasn't... She stopped. Breathed. It didn't matter what I was. Calvin had the judge, had the sheriff, had the church. So you ran. I tried legal first. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Filed complaints, talked to the pastor, stood in front of the town council and begged them to listen. Calvin smiled the whole time, said I was hysterical, said grief made women unstable. They believed him. Emma stirred, made a small sound. Sarah's hand moved to her daughter's hair, stroking gently. Then one night I woke up and found Calvin in Emma's room, just standing there, watching her sleep. Sarah's voice dropped to something cold and hard. He said he was checking on her. Said he had a right. I told him to leave. He laughed. Jake's hands curled into fists. Next morning I packed what I could carry. Took Emma before dawn. We walked to the train station. Calvin was there, waiting. Had 2 men with him. Sarah touched her left wrist unconsciously. They tried to take her. I fought. Screamed. Calvin told the station master I was mad with grief. Showed his papers. Legal guardian. But you got away. The train came. People everywhere. I pushed Emma through the crowd, told her to run. She did. I followed. Sarah met Jake's eyes. We've been running for 6 weeks. Trains, wagons, walking. Money ran out in Kansas. Food ran out in Nebraska. We were trying for Laramie. Heard there might be work. In winter. I didn't have a choice. The words sat heavy in the small cabin. Outside, wind howled against the walls. Jake looked at the woman and child, huddled together on his floor. Sarah's eyes never left his face. She was waiting. For judgment, maybe. Or for him to say what every other man probably said. Not my problem. How old is she? Jake asked. 7. She go to school. Every day before. Sarah stopped. Before we left. Jake nodded slowly. Walked to his shelf. Pulled down a tin box. Opened it. Inside were oatcakes, hard and plain. He broke one in half, brought it to Sarah. Give her this when she wakes. Small bites. Her stomach won't handle much. Sarah took it, stared at it, then at him. That's it. No questions, no conditions. You want conditions. I want to know what this costs. Jake crouched down so they were eye level. You can stay until the snow clears. There's a lean-to off the barn where you can sleep if you want privacy. Work to do if you're able. Cooking, cleaning, mending. I'll pay you fair wages. When you're ready to move on, I'll help you get wherever you're going. Why? Because you need help. Because that little girl shouldn't die in the snow because the law's a coward. Jake's voice didn't rise. Because a man who stands in a child's room at night deserves whatever hell he finds. Sarah's eyes filled. She looked away fast, blinking hard. If Calvin comes, he'll talk to me first. He has papers. I have a Winchester. The law can come visit too. Sarah pressed her hand over her mouth. Her shoulders shook. She wasn't crying. Not quite, but close. Jake stood, gave her space, went to the stove and started pulling out food. Dried beef, potatoes, the last of his flour. He set a pot on to boil, added meat and water. Started making something like stew. Mr. Mercer. Sarah's voice was small. Jake. Jake. She said it carefully. I can work. I'm strong. I can earn our keep. I won't be charity. Didn't figure you would be. And when we leave, if you leave, Jake stirred the pot. Wyoming winters last 6 months. You're not walking anywhere until April. Sarah said nothing. Jake glanced back. She was looking at Emma, running her fingers through the child's dark hair. The little girl's color was better, her breathing deeper. She looks like you, Jake said. Sarah smiled, small and sad. She looks like James, before the mines broke him. The stew bubbled. Jake added salt, a handful of dried herbs. It wasn't much, but it was hot and it would fill their bellies. He poured 2 bowls, brought them over. Emma first when she wakes. You eat now. Sarah took the bowl, held it, didn't eat. I lied to you, she said quietly. Jake waited. We didn't run out of food in Nebraska. We ran out in Kansas. We haven't eaten in 5 days. Jake looked at the bowl in her hands, at her face, at the bones showing sharp beneath her skin. Then stop talking and eat. Sarah brought the spoon to her lips. Tasted. Her eyes closed. A sound escaped her throat, half sob, half relief. She ate slowly, methodically, forcing herself not to rush. Jake watched. Made sure she finished every drop. More? He asked. She shook her head. Emma needs it. There's enough. I can wait. Sarah. Jake refilled the bowl, set it in front of her. Eat. This time she didn't argue. She ate 3 bowls before her body finally signaled full. By then Emma was stirring. Her eyes opened. Blue like winter sky. She saw her mother first. "Mama." "Right here, sweet pea." Sarah pulled her close. "Right here." Emma looked around, saw Jake, pressed tighter against Sarah. "It's all right." Sarah stroked her hair. "This is Mr. Mercer. He found us. He's helping us." Emma stared at Jake with eyes too old for 7, eyes that had seen things no child should. She didn't speak. Jake crouched down, stayed back, kept his voice gentle. "You hungry, Emma?" The girl looked at her mother. Sarah nodded. Emma nodded back. Jake brought over the oatcake broken into small pieces, set it on the blanket between them. Didn't reach out, didn't touch, just waited. Emma's hand crept forward, took a piece, put it in her mouth, chewed slowly. Her eyes went wide. "More?" Jake asked. Emma nodded. Faster this time. He gave her the rest of the pieces one at a time, watched her eat. When she finished, he brought the stew. Sarah fed it to her spoonful by spoonful, whispering encouragement. Jake turned away. Busied himself banking the fire, checking the windows. The storm was getting worse. Snow piled against the glass like white walls. Nobody would be traveling today. Not Calvin. Not anybody. They were safe. For now. "Mr. Mercer." Emma's voice was small and rusty. Jake turned. The girl was sitting up now, color in her cheeks, still thin as a rail, but alive, alert. "Jake," he said. "You can call me Jake." "Are you a cowboy?" "I run cattle, so I guess that's close." "Do you have a gun?" "Emma," Sarah pulled her back. "That's not polite." "It's all right." Jake met the girl's eyes. "Yes, I have a gun." "Can you shoot it?" "When I need to." Emma nodded, processing. Then, "If the bad uncle comes, will you shoot him?" Sarah went pale. "Emma Grace Bennett, you stop that right now." "It's all right," Jake said again. He looked at Emma, really looked, saw the question behind the question, the terror wrapped in childhood bluntness. "If anybody tries to hurt you or your mama, I'll stop them, whatever it takes." "Promise." "Emma." Sarah tried. "Promise," Jake said. Emma stared at him, measuring, deciding. Then she laid back down against her mother, tucked her thumb in her mouth like a much younger child, and closed her eyes. Sarah looked at Jake over her daughter's head. Her expression was complicated, grateful and guilty and scared all at once. "You shouldn't make promises you can't keep," she whispered. "Didn't. Calvin is dangerous. So am I." They sat in silence. Outside, the blizzard raged. Inside, the fire crackled. Emma's breathing evened out into sleep. Sarah held her close, her own eyes drifting shut despite herself. Exhaustion finally claiming what adrenaline had held at bay. Jake watched them both. Thought about the kind of man who'd chase a woman and child into winter. Thought about court papers and bought judges and social respectability that covered rot. He stood, went to the cabinet, pulled out his gun belt, checked the revolver. Loaded. 6 bullets. He set it on the table where he could reach it fast. Then he pulled out his father's old Winchester. The one he'd carried during the war. Checked that too. Loaded. Ready. He wasn't expecting Calvin Bennett tonight. Probably not tomorrow. But soon. Men like that always came. Always wanted what they claimed was theirs. Jake looked at Sarah and Emma sleeping by his fire. At the woman who'd fought so hard she'd nearly died fighting. At the child who asked strangers for protection because the law wouldn't give it. Not yours, he told himself. Not your fight. But he left the guns on the table anyway. The storm blew for 3 days. Jake gave Sarah and Emma his bed. Slept on the floor by the fire. Sarah protested once. Jake ignored her. On the second day, Emma spoke more than 3 words. She asked about the horses. Jake took her to the barn, showed her Belle and the 2 draft horses, a gelding named Samson and a mare named Delilah. Emma was afraid at first. Jake showed her how to hold her hand flat, let them smell her. "They're bigger than houses," Emma whispered. "They're gentle. Samson especially. He's lazy as Sunday." Emma giggled. Small sound, but real. Sarah watched from the barn door. Jake felt her eyes on him. Didn't turn around. Just kept showing Emma how to brush Samson's neck where he liked to be scratched. "You're good with her," Sarah said later back in the cabin. Jake shrugged, stirred the stew. "Kids are easy. They don't lie. Most men don't have patience." "Most men are fools." Sarah smiled. Jake caught it out of the corner of his eye. First real smile he'd seen from her. That night, while Emma slept, Sarah helped him mend a torn saddle. Her stitches were neat and tight, much better than his rough work. "You know leather?" Jake asked. "James taught me, before the mines." She worked quietly for a moment. He was a saddler's apprentice, wanted to open his own shop. Then his father died and he had to take over the claim. He hated it. He endured it. Sarah's needle paused. "For us." Jake nodded. Understood. A man did what he had to. "I'm sorry," Sarah said suddenly. "For what?" "For bringing danger to your door. For—" She gestured helplessly. "For all of this." "You didn't bring anything I wasn't willing to take." "You say that now. When Calvin comes—" "Sarah." Jake set down the leather, looked at her directly. "I've faced worse than Calvin Bennett, and I'm still here. The war, among other things." She wanted to ask more. He saw the curiosity, but she didn't push, just went back to stitching. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not asking more than I can tell. We all got things we don't talk about." Outside, wind howled. Inside, the fire burned warm. Emma slept safe. Sarah's needle moved in and out, creating something whole from something torn. Jake watched her work. Thought about how her hands never stopped. How she moved through the cabin like she was earning her keep even in exhaustion. How she watched him when she thought he wasn't, looking still, waiting for the catch that cost the thing he'd demand in return. There wasn't one. But he figured time would prove that better than words. On the 3rd day, the storm finally broke. Jake went out at dawn to check the stock. Dug them out from the drifts. Fed and watered. Checked fence lines. Everything intact. Lucky. When he came back in, Sarah had breakfast on the table. Oatmeal with the last of his dried apples. Coffee. She'd somehow made the cabin tidier, neater, more lived in. "You didn't have to," he started. "I wanted to." She met his eyes. "It's not much, but it's something." Emma sat at the table, drawing pictures in spilled flour with her finger. She looked up when Jake entered. Smiled. "Jake, look, I made Samson." He bent to see. The horse looked more like a cloud with legs, but Emma was proud. "That's good work," Jake said seriously. Emma beamed. They ate together. First meal as something like a family, though none of them would have said it. Sarah asked about the ranch, how much land, how many cattle, what he did come spring. Jake answered, asked about Emma's schooling. Sarah brightened, talking about books and letters and arithmetic. "I miss teaching," she admitted. "I miss—" She stopped, looked away. Jake understood. She missed the before, the life that made sense. After breakfast, he gave Emma a slate and chalk he'd had since he was a boy. Her eyes lit up. She settled on the floor and started drawing tongue between her teeth in concentration. Sarah washed dishes. Jake split more wood. The day felt almost normal, almost safe. Then, just after noon, Belle whinnied sharp from the barn. Alert. Warning. Jake went still. Sarah froze hands in dishwater. "What is it?" she whispered. "Company." "Calvin." "Too soon to tell. Get Emma." Jake reached for the Winchester. Back room, stay quiet. Sarah moved fast, scooped up Emma, ignoring the girl's protest, disappeared through the door. Jake heard the bolt slide home. He checked the rifle, moved to the window, saw movement through the snow. 2 riders, no 3. Coming up the trail slow and purposeful. Not travelers, not neighbors, hunters. Jake stepped onto the porch, rifle held loose but ready. The riders pulled up 30 feet out, close enough to talk, far enough to think they had options. The man in front was clean-shaven city clothes under a wool coat, polished boots, soft hands, eyes like a banker counting money. Behind him rode 2 others, harder men, the kind hired for muscle. "Good afternoon," the first man called. Pleasant voice, civilized. "I'm looking for Jacob Mercer." "You found him." The man smiled. "Calvin Bennett. I believe you have something of mine." Jake's finger moved to the trigger. Not obvious, just ready. "Don't believe I do." "A woman. Dark hair, about 28, traveling with a child." Calvin's smile never wavered. "Her name is Sarah Bennett. She's my sister-in-law. She's unwell. Needs family." "Sounds unfortunate." "Indeed." Calvin leaned forward slightly. "I have legal custody of the child, court appointed. I'm here to collect her and return them both to Kentucky, where they can receive proper care." "That so?" "Yes." Calvin reached into his coat. Jake's rifle came up. Calvin froze. "Just papers. May I—" Jake nodded once. Calvin pulled out folded documents, held them up. "Guardianship decree, signed by Judge Morrison, County of Harlan, Kentucky, all legal and proper. Kentucky law doesn't run in Wyoming. Federal law says I have parental rights to my brother's child. Federal law says a lot of things, doesn't make them right." Calvin's smile thinned. "Mr. Mercer, I don't want trouble. I just want my niece. Her mother has suffered a breakdown. She needs medical intervention. The child needs stability. I can provide both." "Child looks stable to me." "You've seen them then." Jake said nothing. Calvin's eyes hardened. "Hiding a kidnapped child is a federal offense. I could have you arrested. I could bring the marshal from Cheyenne. But I'm a reasonable man." He gestured to the cabin. "Let me see Emma. Let me speak with Sarah. If they're truly well and happy, perhaps we can come to an arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" "Sarah returns with me. We sort out the legalities properly. Emma stays in family care, my care, until Sarah is evaluated by physicians and deemed fit. If she's fit, she gets the child back. If not—" Calvin spread his hands. "Then I fulfill my duty as guardian." "And the mining claim?" Calvin's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "That's family business." "Meaning it's yours, once Emma's yours. Meaning it's properly managed." Jake lowered the rifle, not down, just to the side. His voice stayed level, calm. "Here's how it's going to work. You're going to turn your horses around. You're going to ride back to whatever hole you crawled out of. And you're going to forget you came here. I have legal—" "I don't care about your papers. I care that a woman and child nearly froze to death running from you. I care that little girl flinches when men raise their voices." Jake's voice dropped, went cold. "I care that you stood in her room at night, watching." Calvin went very still. "Sarah told you that—" "Didn't need to. Girl told me herself. She's 7. She's confused. Grief does things to children. Get off my land." "Mr. Mercer." Jake raised the rifle again. "Now." The 2 hired men reached for their guns. Jake's rifle swung to cover them. "Do it," Jake said softly. "See who's faster." Nobody moved. The moment stretched. Wind blew snow across the gap between them. Calvin raised a hand. His men eased back. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. I'll return with the law." "Bring them. Bring an army. You're not taking that child." Calvin stared at him. The civilized mask slipped. Underneath was something ugly, something that enjoyed fear. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," Calvin said. "I know enough. Sarah is mentally unstable. I have doctors who will attest to it. The child is in danger. I have witnesses." "Witnesses you bought. Witnesses the law will believe." Calvin gathered his reins. "I'll be back, Mr. Mercer, with papers you can't ignore, with men who won't be stopped by posturing." "I'll be here." Calvin turned his horse, rode 10 paces, stopped, looked back. "One more thing. James died in that mine. Accident, they said. But mines are dangerous places. Men die all the time. Strange how some accidents happen right when they're convenient." Jake's blood went cold. "What are you saying?" Calvin smiled. "I'm saying James was a good brother, a decent man. It's a shame he couldn't see reason about the claim, about what was best for Emma's future." He tilted his head. "But in the end, things worked out the way they should. They usually do." He rode off. The 2 hired men followed. Jake watched until they disappeared into the white landscape. Then he waited 5 more minutes, making sure they were really gone. When he turned around, Sarah stood in the doorway. Her face was white as the snow. She'd heard everything. "He killed James," she whispered. "He killed my husband." Jake walked to her. She swayed. He caught her arm, steadied her. "You knew," she said. "Didn't you? You suspected." "I suspected a man who'd chase you into winter was capable of anything. The marshal said it was an accident, tunnel collapse. 2 other men died." Sarah's eyes filled. "But James was supposed to be on day shift. Calvin switched him to night, said there was a problem that needed James's expertise. He went down and never came back up." "Sarah?" "I knew." The tears spilled over. "God help me, I knew. I just couldn't prove it. Nobody would listen. They said I was grief-stricken, delusional." She looked up at Jake. "He murdered his own brother for a mining claim worth maybe $2,000. Then he'll answer for it. How he owns the law. He owns the town. He—" She stopped. Drew a shaking breath. "I can't fight him. He's right. He'll come back with the marshal and I'll have nothing. No proof, no witnesses. Just the word of a widow against a respected banker." Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then, "You're not a widow." Sarah frowned. "What?" "Legally you're a widow, but Wyoming recognizes common law marriage. If you're married to someone else, Calvin has no claim." Sarah stared at him. "I don't understand." "Marry me," Jake said. The words hung in the cold air between them. Sarah's mouth opened, closed. "You can't be serious." "I'm serious. Jake, we barely know each other. You can't just—" "I can, and I am." Jake's voice stayed steady, certain. "Calvin comes back with the marshal. He finds you're married to a Wyoming rancher. He finds Emma has a legal father. What's he going to do? He can wave his Kentucky papers all he wants. They don't mean anything against a marriage certificate filed in Wyoming territory. But it doesn't have to be real, not in the ways that matter. You and Emma stay here. You're safe. You have legal protection. When Calvin gives up and leaves, you can get it annulled. Move on. No one has to know it was just paper." Sarah shook her head. "Why would you do this?" "Because it's the right thing." "No." She stepped back. "No. Men don't sacrifice themselves for strangers without wanting something. What do you want? What's this really about?" Jake met her eyes. "My father was a good man. He raised me to stand between the wolf and the flock. I didn't do it enough during the war. Let people suffer who shouldn't have. I can't do that again." He paused. "That little girl in there asked me to protect her. I gave my word. This is how I keep it." Sarah searched his face, looking for the lie, the trap. Jake let her look. He had nothing to hide. "You'd marry me," she said slowly. "Give me your name. Risk Calvin's wrath and whatever he might do. For nothing. Not for nothing. For Emma. For you. For the fact that right matters more than legal. Jake's voice softened, and maybe because this cabin's been too quiet too long. Sarah's breath caught. She looked away, looked back. If we do this, if I agree, I need you to understand something. What? I can't give you. She stopped, started again. James was my husband. I loved him. I'm not ready to. I might never be ready. I'm not asking for that. Then what are you asking for? A chance to do something right. And maybe if we're both lucky, some company that doesn't require explaining. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Jake waited. Didn't push. This had to be her choice. Her decision. Finally she spoke. If I say yes, if we do this, I need to know you understand what you're walking into. Calvin won't stop. He'll bring lawyers, lawmen worse. He'll make your life hell. Let him try. You could die. We all die. Jake. She grabbed his arm. I'm serious. He killed James. He'll kill you. Jake covered her hand with his. Then he better be fast. Sarah searched his eyes one more time. Then slowly, she nodded. All right, she whispered. All right. Yes. Jake nodded back. I'll ride to town in the morning, get the papers drawn up. We'll make it legal before Calvin can move. And Emma? She's mine as much as yours the moment we sign. Sarah's eyes filled again. But this time when she smiled, it was real. Inside the cabin behind the bolted door, Emma waited in the dark, pressing her ear against the wood, listening to every word and hoping for the first time since her father died that maybe the man with the gentle voice and the ready gun could keep the promise other men had broken. Jake left before dawn. The snow had stopped, but the cold hadn't. Sarah watched from the window as he saddled Belle, his breath forming white clouds in the darkness. He looked back, once caught her watching, nodded. Then he rode into the gray pre-dawn light and disappeared. Emma woke an hour later, found her mother at the table, hands wrapped around cold coffee, staring at nothing. Where's Jake? Town. He'll be back tonight. Why'd he go to town? Sarah looked at her daughter. 7 years old, too young to understand, too old to lie to. He went to get papers so we can stay here, so Calvin can't take you. Emma climbed into her mother's lap, small body warm and solid, real. I like it here, Emma said quietly. Jake's nice. He doesn't yell. Sarah's throat tightened. I know, sweet pea. Can we really stay forever? I don't know about forever, but for now, for as long as we need to. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, Mama? What are the papers for? Sarah took a breath. Jake is going to marry me, just on paper, so Calvin can't say I'm unfit, so you have a legal father who can protect you. Emma pulled back, looked at her mother with those two old eyes. Like Papa? No, baby, not like Papa. This is different. This is just to keep us safe. But Jake said he'd protect us anyway. He did. And he means it. But sometimes protection needs paper to make it real in the eyes of the law. Emma thought about this. Do you want to marry Jake? I want you safe. That's not what I asked. Sarah smiled despite everything. When did you get so smart? I'm 7. I'm practically grown. You are. Sarah pulled her close again. Jake is a good man, Emma. Better than most. If we have to do this to stay safe, I'm glad it's him. Me too, Emma said. Then after a pause, can I call him Papa? Sarah's heart cracked. Let's wait and see, sweet pea. Let's wait and see. The day passed slow. Sarah cleaned the cabin twice, cooked stew, baked bread from the last of the flour, kept her hands busy so her mind couldn't spiral. Emma drew pictures on the slate, horses and houses and stick figures holding hands. When darkness fell, Sarah lit the lanterns, fed Emma, put her to bed, sat by the fire and waited. Belle's whinny came just after 8. Sarah's head snapped up. She heard hoofbeats. One horse. She grabbed the poker from the fire, stood by the door. "Sarah, it's me." She opened the door. Jake stood there, snow dusting his hat and shoulders. He looked tired, cold, but his eyes were steady. "You get them." He pulled papers from his coat. "Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Judge Hawkins will do it in his office. We need 2 witnesses." "Who?" "I asked Tom and Mary Fletcher. They own the general store. Good people. They'll keep quiet if we ask." Sarah took the papers, stared at them. Marriage license, territory of Wyoming, names blank, date blank. Real as anything. "You can still say no," Jake said. "I'll figure something else out." "There isn't anything else." "Then we do this." Sarah nodded, set the papers on the table like they might bite. "When do we leave?" "First light, it's 4 hours to town. We'll be back before dark." "And Emma?" "She comes. Judge needs to see her, needs to know she's real and she's safe." Sarah looked at him, really looked. Saw the lines around his eyes, the set of his shoulders, the way he held himself like a man who'd decided something and wouldn't be moved. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "Calvin will make your life hell. The town will talk. People will assume things. Let them assume." "Jake." "Sarah." He stepped closer, close enough she could smell leather and cold air and horse. "I've thought about this. I know what I'm doing." "Do you? Because I don't. I don't know how to be married to someone I barely know. I don't know how to live in a house that isn't mine. I don't know." Her voice broke. "I don't know how to let someone help without expecting them to take something in return." "Then we'll figure it out as we go." "That's not a plan." "It's the only one we've got." Sarah laughed, sharp and brittle. "God help us." "He might. But even if he doesn't, we're doing this anyway." She looked at him. This stranger who pulled them from snow, who fed them and sheltered them and asked nothing, who was about to tie his name to hers and face down a killer to keep a promise to a 7-year-old girl. "I'll earn this," she said. "However long we do this, I'll earn my keep. I'll work. Sarah. I won't be a burden. I won't." "Sarah." Jake caught her hands, held them still. "You're not a burden. You're a woman who needs help. There's no shame in that." "There's shame in taking without giving." "Then give what you can. Cook, clean, keep the books if you want. But don't kill yourself trying to pay a debt that doesn't exist." Sarah pulled her hands away, wrapped her arms around herself. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." She turned to the fire, watched the flames. "James was good to me, but his family wasn't. They thought he married beneath him. Coal country school teacher. No family, no money." Her voice went flat. "When he died, they made sure I knew I was nothing, that everything I had was because of him, because he allowed it. Without him, I was just—" She stopped. "You were just what? Disposable." The word sat heavy. Jake was quiet for a long moment. "My father used to say a person's worth isn't in what they own or who they marry. It's in what they do when no one's watching, when there's no reward coming." He moved to stand beside her, not touching, just close. "You ran into winter with nothing but your daughter and the clothes on your back. You walked until your feet bled. You went 5 days without food and kept going. That's not disposable. That's steel." Sarah's eyes burned. "Calvin will come back." "I know. He'll bring the marshal, maybe worse." "I know." "You could die." "Sarah." Jake turned her to face him. "Look at me." She did. "I rode through 3 years of war. Saw things that would break most men. I came home to Wyoming because I was tired of running and tired of watching good people suffer while bad people thrived." His voice was quiet, certain. "If Calvin Bennett wants a war, he'll get one. But he won't get you, and he won't get Emma." "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why do you care so much?" Jake's jaw worked. He looked away, looked back. "During the war, I was stationed outside Atlanta. Burned a lot of homes, lot of farms. Orders were orders. But there was this one place, little cabin woman and 3 kids. Her husband died at Shiloh. She begged us not to take her food, said her children would starve." He stopped. Sarah waited. "My captain didn't care, took everything, burned the house anyway. I stood there and watched, told myself I was just following orders." Jake's voice went rough. "Found out later those kids didn't make it through winter. All 3 died. Jake, I stood there and did nothing. I let them suffer because it was easier than standing up." He met her eyes. "I won't do that again. Not ever." Sarah reached out, touched his arm. "That wasn't your fault. Doesn't matter. Still happened. And this is you trying to make up for it. This is me doing what I should have done then." They stood in the firelight, the cabin warm and quiet around them. Emma sleeping in the next room. The marriage papers on the table. Tomorrow coming whether they were ready or not. "I'm afraid," Sarah whispered. "Me too." "Then why are we doing this? Because fear's not a good enough reason to let bad things happen." Sarah nodded slowly, stepped back. "We should sleep. Long day tomorrow. You take the bed, I'll take the floor." Jake, not arguing about this. Sarah smiled despite herself. "You're stubborn." "Heard that before." She started toward the bedroom, then stopped, turned back. "Jake, thank you for all of this. You keep thanking me, I'm going to think you don't believe I mean it." "I'm starting to believe. That's what scares me." She disappeared into the bedroom. Jake heard the door close softly. He stood by the fire for a long time after, thinking about tomorrow, about Calvin, about 3 children who died because he was a coward. Not this time, he thought. Not ever again. He bedded down on the floor, closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come easy. But when it did, he dreamed of snow and fire, and a little girl asking him to keep a promise he'd die before breaking. They left at dawn. The morning was clear and brutal, cold enough to freeze spit before it hit the ground. Jake helped Emma onto Belle, then Sarah. He walked alongside, leading the horse-breaking trail through snow that came up to his knees in places. Emma chattered at first, excited about town, about new people, about the adventure of it all. But as the miles passed and the cold settled deeper, she went quiet, pressed against her mother's back. Sarah wrapped her arms around her daughter, kept her warm. Jake watched them, mother and child bundled together against the wind. He thought about the papers in his coat pocket, about what they'd mean once signed. Husband, father. Words that had weight. That meant forever, even when they didn't. "Jake." Emma's voice was small. "Yeah." "Will it hurt?" "Will what hurt?" "Getting married." Sarah tensed. Jake glanced up at her. She looked away. "No," Jake said. "It won't hurt. Just sign some papers, say some words, quick and easy." "Then why does Mama look scared?" "Emma," Sarah started. "I'm not scared," Jake said. "Are you—" Emma thought about it. "A little. What if Calvin comes while we're gone?" "He won't. Too soon. And if he does, neighbors know to watch the place. Old Tom Fletcher promised to ride out twice a day." "But what if—" "Emma Grace," Sarah said gently. "No more what-ifs. We're doing this. We're going to be safe. Trust Jake." Emma was quiet. Then, I do trust him. I just don't want him to go away like Papa. Jake stopped walking, turned to look at the child. She stared down at him with James's eyes. Sarah's determination, a mix of fear and hope that cut straight through him. I'm not going anywhere, Jake said. Promise? Promise. Emma nodded, satisfied. They kept walking. Town appeared on the horizon just after 9. Small place, maybe 300 people. Main street lined with buildings that looked tired. General store, saloon, church. And at the end, a square brick building with a sign that read, County Office. Jake tied Belle to the post outside, helped Sarah and Emma down. His hands lingered on Sarah's waist a moment longer than necessary. She noticed. So did he. Neither said anything. Inside the office was warm. A clerk sat at a desk, scratching notes with a pen that needed replacing. He looked up, saw them, frowned. Help you. We're here to see Judge Hawkins. He's expecting us. The clerk's frown deepened. Mercer. That's right. Wait here. He disappeared through a door, came back a minute later with an older man. Late 50s gray hair spectacles. Judge Hawkins had the look of someone who'd seen too much and believed too little. Mr. Mercer. They shook hands. Hawkins looked at Sarah. Ma'am. Your Honor. And this must be Emma. Hawkins crouched down, smiled. Hello, young lady. Emma hid behind Sarah's skirt. She's shy, Sarah said quickly. Understandable. Hawkins straightened. Fletcher's here. Right here, Judge. Tom Fletcher stepped out from behind a shelf of ledgers. His wife, Mary, followed. Both smiled at Sarah. Warm, genuine. Mary. Sarah's voice broke with relief. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Mary hugged her, whispered something Jake couldn't hear. Sarah nodded, wiped her eyes fast. Well then. Hawkins clapped his hands once. Let's get this done, everyone in my office. They filed in. Small room, desk, chairs, window looking out on the snowy street. Hawkins sat, pulled out the marriage license, dipped his pen in ink. Names, Jacob Thomas Mercer. Sarah Ann Bennett, Hawkins wrote. Date of birth. They gave them. Hawkins kept writing, asked about residence occupation, previous marriages. Sarah's voice shook when she said James's name. Jake reached over, took her hand. She gripped it hard. This marriage is... Hawkins paused, looked at them over his spectacles. I'll be honest. Tom told me the situation, about Calvin Bennett, about why you're really doing this. Sarah went pale. Your Honor. I don't care. Hawkins set down his pen. I've seen enough law twisted to serve bastards while good people suffer. If this marriage keeps that child safe, then it's more real than half the ones I perform. He picked up the pen again. But I need to know something. Are you both entering this of your own free will? No coercion. Yes, Jake said. Sarah. She looked at Jake. At Emma. At the paper that would change everything. Yes. Good enough. Hawkins signed the bottom. Tom, Mary, you're up. The Fletchers witnessed, signed their names. Hawkins blotted the ink, looked at Jake and Sarah. Normally I'd do a ceremony. Vows rings the whole business. But Tom said you wanted quick and quiet. We do, Sarah said. Then I'll make it simple. Hawkins stood. Jacob Mercer, do you take Sarah Bennett as your lawfully wedded wife to protect and provide for in sickness and health for as long as you both shall live? Jake's voice was steady. I do. Sarah Bennett, do you take Jacob Mercer as your lawfully wedded husband to honor and support in sickness and health for as long as you both shall live? Sarah's voice shook but held. I do. Then by the power vested in me by Wyoming Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. Hawkins smiled. You may kiss the bride. Or not. Up to you. Jake looked at Sarah. She looked back. The moment stretched. Then Jake leaned in, pressed his lips to her forehead. Gentle. Brief. Sarah's eyes closed. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet." Hawkins handed Jake the license. "This is legal and binding. File a copy with the territorial office in Cheyenne if you want extra protection. Keep the original somewhere safe." "I will." "And Mr. Mercer." Hawkins leaned forward. "Calvin Bennett has friends in high places, but so do I. If he brings trouble, you send word. I'll make sure the marshal understands which side of the law he's supposed to be on." "Appreciate that, Your Honor." "Don't appreciate it. Just don't get killed before I can help." They left the office. The cold hit like a fist. Emma ran ahead, boots crunching in snow. Mary Fletcher pulled Sarah aside. "You all right?" "I don't know." Sarah looked at the paper in Jake's hand. "I just married a man I've known for 4 days." "You married a good man who's willing to die for you. That's rare." Mary squeezed her arm. "Give it time. See what grows. And if nothing grows, then at least you're alive to find out." Tom shook Jake's hand. "Calvin won't take this lying down." "I know. Watch your back. He's got money and mean streak long as the Platte. I've dealt with worse." "Have you?" Tom's expression was serious. "Because I knew Calvin's father. He was a hard man. Raised Calvin to believe the world owed him everything. Men like that don't lose gracefully." "Then he better learn fast." They said their goodbyes. Jake helped Sarah and Emma onto Bell, started the long walk home. They were 2 hours out when Emma spoke up. "Mama." "Yes, sweet pea? Are you and Jake really married now?" Sarah glanced at Jake. He kept walking, eyes forward. "Yes," Sarah said quietly. "We are." "Does that mean Jake's my papa now?" Sarah's throat closed. That's up to Jake." Emma looked down at him. "Are you my papa?" Jake stopped walking, turned to face the child. Snow fell soft around them, the world gone quiet and white. "Do you want me to be—" Emma nodded. "Solemn, sure." "Then I am." "Promise?" "Promise." Emma smiled. First real smile Jake had seen from her. It lit her whole face, made her look 7 instead of 70. "Can I tell you a secret?" Emma whispered. "Go ahead." "I prayed for someone like you. After Papa died. I prayed every night for someone strong who wouldn't let Calvin take me." Her eyes shone. "I think God sent you." Jake's chest tightened. He looked at Sarah. She was crying silently, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Maybe he did," Jake said finally. "Or maybe we're just lucky. Either way, I'm here, and I'm staying." Emma reached down, touched his face with her small hand. "I love you, Papa." The words hit Jake like a bullet. He caught her hand, held it. "I love you too, sweetheart." They kept moving, walked until the ranch appeared through the snow. Home. The word felt strange. Jake hadn't had a home in years, just a place to sleep. But looking at it now, Sarah and Emma beside him, it felt different. Fuller. They were 50 yards from the cabin when Bell stopped. Head up, ears forward, alert. Jake's hand went to his gun. "What is it, girl?" Then he saw it. Smoke rising from his chimney. Too much smoke. And the door was open. "Stay here," Jake said. "Jake, stay here." He pulled the Winchester from Bell's saddle, worked the action, moved forward slow and careful. The cabin was wrecked. Table overturned. Chairs smashed. Papers scattered everywhere. Jake moved through the destruction rifle, ready checking corners. No one inside, but the message was clear. Written on the wall, in what looked like charcoal. "She's mine. Come get her." Jake stood in the ruins of his home and felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. Rage, pure and clean and dangerous. "Jake." Sarah's voice from the doorway. He turned. She stood there with Emma, both staring at the destruction. Emma made a small sound, buried her face in her mother's coat. "He was here," Sarah whispered. "He knows. He knows." "What do we do?" Jake looked at the message on the wall, then at his wife, his daughter, both scared and cold and trusting him to have answers. "We finish this," he said. "Once and for all." Jake moved through the cabin, writing chairs, picking up scattered papers. His movements were controlled, deliberate. Sarah recognized that kind of calm. She'd seen it in James once, right before he confronted Calvin about the claim. It was the calm before violence. "Take Emma to the barn," Jake said without looking up. "Get her settled in the tack room. There's blankets in the trunk." "Jake, now Sarah." She wanted to argue, wanted to say they should run pack what they could carry and disappear into the snow. But Emma was shaking in her arms, and the barn at least had walls and a door that locked. "Come on, sweet pea." Sarah carried her daughter outside. Behind them she heard Jake working, the scrape of furniture, the sound of something heavy being dragged. The barn was warmer than she expected. The horses shifted in their stalls, restless from strangers visiting during the day. Sarah found the tack room, a small space that smelled of leather and oil. The trunk Jake mentioned held wool blankets and an old bearskin that was worn but thick. She made a nest in the corner, settled Emma into it. The child hadn't spoken since seeing the cabin. Her eyes were too wide, her breathing too fast. "Mama," Emma's voice was tiny. "Is the bad uncle coming?" Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair. "I don't know." "Will Jake fight him?" "Yes." "Will Jake win?" The question hung there. Sarah wanted to say yes, wanted to promise her daughter that good always triumphed, that righteous men prevailed. But she'd learned the hard way that the world didn't work like that. "I hope so," Sarah said finally. "I really hope so." Emma grabbed her mother's hand. "Don't leave me." "I won't. I'm right here." "Promise. Promise." They sat in the makeshift nest, holding each other, listening to the horses breathe and the wind howl and waiting for whatever came next. Jake appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later. He'd changed clothes. Dark shirt, dark pants. His gun belt sat low on his hips, and he carried the Winchester in one hand and a revolver in the other. "Sarah, I need you to listen carefully." She stood, keeping herself between him and Emma. Old instinct. Calvin's message wasn't just a threat, it was a claim. He's saying you're his property and I stole you. Jake's voice was flat, empty of emotion. "He'll be back, soon, and he won't come alone." "How many?" "At least the 2 he had before, maybe more." "So we're outnumbered. We're outgunned, but we're not helpless." Jake held out the revolver. "You know how to shoot?" Sarah stared at the weapon. "James taught me, years ago." "Good enough." He pressed the gun into her hand. 6 shots. Point and pull. Don't think, just act. The metal was cold and heavy. Sarah's hand shook. "I can't." "Yes, you can. If someone comes through that door who isn't me, you shoot them. Center mass. Keep shooting until they stop moving." "Jake?" "Sarah." He grabbed her shoulders. "I need you to understand. Calvin wants Emma. If he gets past me, you're all that stands between him and your daughter. Can you do that? Can you pull that trigger?" She looked at Emma, small and scared in the corner, thought about Calvin standing in her daughter's room at night, about James dying in a mine that should have been safe, about running through snow with nothing but desperation and love. "Yes," Sarah said. "Yes, I can." "Good." Jake released her, moved to the door. "I've barricaded the cabin, set up positions I can fire from. If they come, I'll hold them as long as I can. And if you can't, then you run. Take Emma and go north. There's a trapper named Silas 3 miles up the creek bed. Tell him Jake sent you. He'll hide you." "I'm not leaving you." "Sarah, I said I'm not leaving you." Her voice shook, but held firm. "You married me, gave me your name, made promises to my daughter. I won't let you die alone defending what's ours." Jake stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. softened. "Our marriage license is in the desk drawer. Top right. If something happens to me, you take it and go to Judge Hawkins. He'll protect you. Nothing's going to happen to you." Sarah. No. She stepped closer. "You don't get to give up before the fight even starts. You don't get to plan your funeral when Emma just called you Papa." Jake's jaw worked. He looked away, looked back. "I've been in battles. Real ones. War is chaos and luck and who shoots first. I can't promise." "Then don't promise. Just fight." They stood there inches apart, the revolver between them like a pact. "All right," Jake said finally. "All right." He left. Sarah heard his boots crunch through snow back to the cabin. She sat down beside Emma, gun in her lap, and waited. The sun tracked across the sky. Noon came and went. Emma dozed, fitfully exhausted from fear. Sarah didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every sound made her jump. Every wind gust sounded like hoofbeats. She thought about the last year, about James dying, about Calvin's smile at the funeral, about running and starving and nearly freezing, about Jake's hands pulling her from the snow, about his voice saying, "I do," in Judge Hawkins's office, about Emma calling him Papa like it was the most natural thing in the world. They'd been married less than 12 hours, barely knew each other. But sitting in that barn, gun in hand, Sarah realized something that terrified and comforted her in equal measure. She didn't want Jake to die, not just because they needed him, not just because he was protection and safety and a name that meant something, but because somewhere in 4 days of kindness and quiet strength, she'd started to care what happened to him. The realization made her angry. She had no right to care, no space in her heart for anyone but Emma. James had been dead a year, and she still dreamed about him. Still heard his voice, still felt the ghost of his touch. She had nothing left to give. But the gun in her hands said otherwise. The way her heart hammered every time she thought about Calvin riding up said otherwise. The fact that she was prepared to kill to protect this man she barely knew said everything. "Mama." Emma stirred, rubbed her eyes. "What time is it?" "Late afternoon, almost dark." "Has anyone come?" "Not yet." Emma sat up, looked at the gun in Sarah's lap. "Are you scared?" "Yes." "Me too." Emma crawled closer. "But Jake's strong. He'll win." "How do you know?" "Because he promised. And Jake doesn't lie." Sarah pulled her daughter close, prayed Emma was right. They came just after sunset. Sarah heard the horses first. Multiple riders, coming fast. She stood moved to the door, peered through the crack. 6 men. Calvin in the lead on his black gelding. The 2 hired guns behind him. And 3 more she didn't recognize. Hard-looking men with rifles and the kind of faces that said they'd done bad things and would do more. They pulled up in front of the cabin, spread out, tactical, practiced. "Mercer," Calvin's voice carried across the snow. "I know you're in there, and I know you've got Sarah and Emma. Send them out and we'll talk. Settle this civilized." Silence from the cabin. "I've got 6 men, Mercer. You've got what a Winchester and pride. This doesn't have to end bloody. Just give me what's mine." "Nothing here is yours." Jake's voice came from somewhere inside. Sarah couldn't see him, but she heard the steel in his words. "Leave now, and you leave breathing." Calvin laughed. "Big talk for a man alone." "Who says I'm alone?" "You expect me to believe you've got an army in there?" "I expect you to believe I'll put a bullet in you before you finish your next sentence." The hired guns shifted. Hands moved toward weapons. Calvin raised a hand, stopping them. "All right, Mercer. Let's try honesty. I want the girl. The mining claim is worth $2,000. I'll give you $500 to walk away. That's more than fair." "Not interested." "1,000 then. Cash. Right now." Still not interested. Why? She's not even yours. You've known them what a week, and you're willing to die for. The shot cracked through the cold air, kicked up snow 2 feet from Calvin's horse. The animal spooked reared. Calvin fought for control, cursing. Next one won't miss, Jake said. Calvin got his horse settled. His face was red angry. You just assaulted an officer of the court. You're a banker with a bought badge. Don't flatter yourself. I've got legal standing. I've got witnesses. And I've got more men than you have bullets. Calvin's voice went cold. Last chance, Mercer. Send out Sarah and Emma, or we burn you out. Try it. Calvin looked at his men, nodded. 2 of them dismounted, grabbed torches from their saddles, moved toward the cabin. Sarah's heart stopped. The gun in her hand suddenly felt light useless, 6 against 1. They'd burn Jake alive, burn the cabin, smoke them out of the barn. She looked at Emma, at her daughter's terrified face, at the future closing in like jaws. No, Sarah thought, not like this. She stood, shoved the gun in her coat pocket, grabbed Emma's hand. Mama, what are you doing? Ending this. No. Stay close to me. No matter what happens, stay close. She pulled open the barn door, stepped out into the dying light. Calvin's men saw her immediately, raised rifles. Wait! Sarah's voice cut through the tension. Wait! Calvin turned. His smile was sharp and cruel. Sarah, finally, some sense. Jake's voice roared from the cabin. Sarah, get back inside. She ignored him, kept walking. Emma pressed against her side, stopped 10 feet from Calvin's horse. You want to talk civilized, Sarah said. Let's talk. Nothing to talk about. You're coming with me. Emma's coming with me. This ends now. No. Sarah pulled the marriage license from her pocket. This ends now. I'm married, legal and binding. Judge Hawkins performed the ceremony this morning. Tom and Mary Fletcher witnessed. Calvin's smile faded. You're lying. Read it yourself. She held up the paper. One of the hired guns moved forward, took it, brought it to Calvin. He read it. His face went white, then red. This is fraud, coercion. I'll have it annulled before, on what grounds I married of my own free will. Emma has a legal father now. Your claim is void. My claim is blood. I'm her uncle. And Jake is her father. Wyoming law says paternal rights trump blood relations. You have no standing. Sarah's voice shook but held. You lost Calvin. Accept it and go home. Calvin crumpled the paper, threw it in the snow. You stupid woman. You think a piece of paper changes anything? I'll drag you back to Kentucky in chains. I'll have that marriage annulled and I'll put Emma in a home where what? Sarah stepped closer. Where you can access her inheritance, where you can control her money. That's what this is about. Not family, not duty, money. Shut your mouth. James knew, didn't he? He knew you wanted the claim. That's why he changed his will. That's why he left everything to Emma, not you. Because he knew exactly what kind of man you are. Calvin's hand moved to his gun. I said shut your mouth. Is that what you told him? Before you collapsed the mine? Before you murdered your own brother? The words hung in the cold air. Calvin went very still. You can't prove that. I don't have to prove it. I just have to say it. Loud enough. Often enough. Until people start asking questions. Until they wonder why James died right after refusing to sell his claim. Until they remember you were the last person to see him alive. You're insane. I'm desperate. There's a difference. Sarah's hand moved to her pocket, to the gun. And desperate people are dangerous. Calvin saw the movement. So did his men. Rifles came up, aimed at her and Emma. You pull that gun, you're dead, Calvin said. Maybe, but so are you. And everything you've done, everything you've murdered for dies with you. Sarah's voice was steady now. Emma gets the claim, gets her father's legacy, and you get nothing, just a bullet and a hole in the ground. They stared at each other, predator and prey. But Sarah wasn't prey anymore. She was a mother with a gun and nothing left to lose. "Mama," Emma whispered. "I'm scared." "I know, baby. Stay behind me." The cabin door opened. Jake stepped out. Winchester leveled at Calvin. His face was stone. "She's right," Jake said. "You shoot her, you die. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe your men get me too. But you still die. That worth $2,000. Calvin looked at Jake, at Sarah, at Emma. The calculations ran behind his eyes. Risk versus reward. Death versus money. "This isn't over," he said finally. "Yes, it is." Jake took 3 steps forward, close enough now that he couldn't miss. "You ride away right now, you get to keep breathing. You come back, you don't. Simple as that. I'll bring the marshal, federal agents. You'll do nothing. Because if you make any move toward this family, I'll ride to Kentucky and tell everyone who'll listen about James, about the mine, about a banker who killed his brother for money." Jake's voice went cold as the snow. "I've got friends too. Friends who fought in the war. Friends who know how to dig up truth. You want that kind of attention." Calvin's face twitched. For a moment, Sarah thought he'd do it. Thought he'd draw and damn the consequences. Men like Calvin didn't lose gracefully. But then he looked at his hired guns. Saw them shifting nervously. Saw them calculating their own odds. Men who worked for money, not loyalty. "Get on your horse," one of the hired guns said to Calvin. "This ain't worth dying over." "I paid you. You paid us to collect a woman and kid, not to die in Wyoming snow for your grudge." The man holstered his rifle. "I'm out." He mounted up, rode off into the darkness. The other hired gun followed, then another. Calvin was left with 2 men, both looking less certain by the second. "You're cowards," Calvin spat. "We're alive," one said. "That counts more." They left too. Calvin sat alone on his horse, surrounded by enemies holding reins and shaking hands. "You'll regret this," he said to Sarah. "All of you. I promise you'll—" Jake fired. The bullet passed so close to Calvin's head that the man felt the wind of it. His horse screamed, bolted. Calvin barely hung on, careening away into the darkness, curses trailing behind him like smoke. Silence fell. Sarah stood in the snow. Emma clutched against her gun, still in her pocket. Her whole body shook. Jake lowered the Winchester, walked to Sarah, stood in front of her. "You shouldn't have come out." "I know." "You could have been killed." "I know." "I told you to stay in the barn." "I know." Sarah looked up at him. "But I couldn't let you die alone." Something broke in Jake's expression. He reached out, pulled her and Emma against him, held them both tight. Sarah felt his heart hammering, felt the fear he'd hidden so well, felt the relief flooding through him. "Don't do that again," he said into her hair. "Please, don't ever do that again." "I can't promise that." "Sarah, if someone threatens my family, I fight. That's who I am." Jake pulled back, looked at her. "Your family." Sarah met his eyes. "Yes." The word sat between them. Heavy with meaning, neither was ready to name. Emma broke the moment. "Is the bad uncle gone?" "Yes," Jake said. "He's gone. Forever. Forever." Emma threw her arms around his neck. "You did it, Papa. You won." Jake held her close. His eyes met Sarah's over the child's shoulder. "We won. All of us." They stood there in the snow as darkness fell complete. 3 people who'd been strangers a week ago, now bound by paper and promises, and the kind of desperate love that only grows in winter. The next days passed in strange normalcy. Jake repaired the cabin. Sarah cooked and cleaned and pretended her hands weren't still shaking. Emma played with the horses and laughed more than she cried and called Jake Papa, like she'd been doing it her whole life. But Sarah couldn't sleep. Every night she lay in the bed Jake had given up for her, staring at the ceiling, listening for hoofbeats that never came. Calvin was gone, but not forgotten. His threat hung over them like weather. On the fourth night, she gave up on sleep entirely, wrapped herself in a blanket, and went to sit by the fire. Jake was there already, cleaning his rifle. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." "Me neither." They sat in comfortable silence. The fire crackled. Outside, wind howled. Inside, warmth held. "Thank you," Sarah said finally, "for what you did, for all of it." "You keep thanking me." "Because I keep meaning it." Jake set down the rifle, looked at her. "You stood in front of 6 men with guns, told Calvin you'd shoot him. That took—" He shook his head. "That took more courage than most men have." I was terrified. Courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. Sarah pulled the blanket tighter. "James used to say that." "Your husband was a smart man." "He was." Her voice went soft. "I loved him. I still do." "I know. But he's gone. And you're here. And I don't—" She stopped, started again. "I don't know how to do this. How to be married to you. How to let Emma love you. How to feel anything but guilty for being alive when he's dead." Jake was quiet for a long time. Then, "My father died when I was 12. Winter. He went out to check the stock during a blizzard and never came back. We found him 3 days later, frozen solid, 20 feet from the barn door." Sarah waited. "For years I was angry. Angry at him for dying. Angry at myself for not going with him. Angry at God for taking him." Jake stared into the fire. "Then one day my mother sat me down and said something I never forgot. She said grief is love with nowhere to go. And until I found somewhere to put that love, I'd stay angry forever." "What did you do?" "I built this place. Every log, every fence post, every piece of this ranch is my father. His lessons, his hands guiding mine, his voice telling me to keep going when I wanted to quit." Jake looked at Sarah. "He's dead, but he's not gone. Not really." Sarah's eyes burned. "James would have liked you." "Yeah." He respected men who kept their word, who protected the weak, who did right even when it cost them. She smiled through tears. "You would have gotten along." "Then maybe he sent me," Jake said quietly. "Maybe he's looking out for you still. Made sure you landed somewhere safe." "You believe that?" "I believe love doesn't die just because a heart stops. I believe good men leave marks on the world. And I believe James loved you enough to want you happy, even if he couldn't be the one to make you that way." Sarah broke. The tears came fast and hard, months of grief finally released. Jake moved to her side, pulled her against his chest, let her sob. He didn't shush her or tell her it would be okay. He just held her while she fell apart. When she finally quieted, she stayed against him, listened to his heartbeat, felt his warmth, realized she felt safe for the first time since James died. "I'm not asking you to love me," Jake said into the silence. "I'm not asking for anything except what we agreed. But Sarah—" He tilted her face up. "If someday you find room in your heart for someone new, I'll be here, waiting. No pressure, no demands, just possibility." Sarah searched his face, saw patience and strength and the kind of steady goodness that was so rare it felt mythical. "You're a good man, Jacob Mercer." "I'm trying to be." James was good. Calvin was his brother. Same blood, same upbringing. But one became a protector and the other became a predator. She touched Jake's face. "Blood doesn't make it a man. Choices do. Then I choose this. You, Emma. This family we've stumbled into. Even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. Easy things don't mean much." Sarah leaned her forehead against his. They sat like that for a long time. Not kissing, not moving. Just breathing together, being together, finding what comfort they could in a world that gave so little. "Mama," Emma's voice from the doorway. They pulled apart. Emma stood there in Jake's too big shirt, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you awake, sweet pea?" "Bad dream." Emma came to them, climbed into Sarah's lap. "I dreamed the bad uncle took me away and you couldn't find me." "Just a dream," Sarah soothed. "You're safe. We're all safe. Promise." Promise. Emma looked at Jake. "Were you and Mama talking about Papa Real?" "Papa?" Jake glanced at Sarah. She nodded. "We were," Jake said. "I still remember him. I don't want to forget." "You won't forget. We won't let you." Jake pulled them both close. "Your real Papa loved you more than anything. He died trying to give you a good life. We're going to honor that. Going to make sure you grow up knowing his name, his stories, his love. And you'll love me too?" "Already do." Emma nestled between them. "I have two papas now, one in heaven and one here. That's special." "Very special," Sarah whispered. They sat together by the fire, mother, daughter, and the man who'd chosen them when he didn't have to. Outside, winter raged on, but inside, warmth was taking root. The kind of warmth that starts small and grows slow and becomes something strong enough to survive anything, even Calvin Bennett. The letter arrived 3 weeks later. Tom Fletcher brought it himself, riding through snow that came up to his horse's chest. He handed it to Jake without a word, just a grim look that said everything. Jake opened it on the porch. Sarah stood beside him, Emma between them. The official seal of Harlan County, Kentucky, stared up at them like an accusation. "What does it say?" Sarah's voice was barely audible. Jake read aloud. "Notice of challenge to marital legitimacy. Calvin Bennett, acting guardian of Emma Bennett, hereby contests the marriage of Sarah Bennett and Jacob Mercer on grounds of fraud, coercion, and conspiracy to deprive a legal guardian of his ward. Hearing scheduled for March 15th in Cheyenne Territorial Court. Failure to appear will result in immediate annulment and forfeiture of all parental claims." Sarah's legs went weak. Jake caught her, held her steady. "He's not giving up," she whispered. "No, he's not." "What do we do?" Jake folded the letter. "We go to Cheyenne. We fight." "With what? We have a marriage license and 4 weeks of living together. Calvin has lawyers and money, and we have the truth." "Since when does truth win against money?" Jake looked at her. "Since I decided it would." Tom cleared his throat. "There's more. Calvin's been talking to folks back in Kentucky, spreading stories about Sarah, saying she's unstable, dangerous, that she kidnapped Emma in a fit of grief madness." "That's a lie," Sarah said. "I know it, you know it. But people who never met you. They hear a respectable banker talk about his poor deceased brother's widow losing her mind." Tom shook his head. "They believe what they want to believe." "So what's he trying to do?" Jake asked. "Build a case. He's building sympathy, making himself the hero, the concerned uncle trying to save his niece from a woman who can't care for her properly." Sarah turned away, pressed her hand to her mouth. Emma tugged at her skirt. "Mama, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweet pea. Go inside. It's too cold out here." "But..." "Inside, now." Emma's face crumpled, but she obeyed. The door closed behind her. Sarah waited until her daughter's footsteps faded, then she let herself break, just for a moment, just long enough to feel the weight of it all crushing down. "I can't do this," she said. "I can't stand in front of a judge and defend myself against lies. I can't watch them tear apart everything I am and twist it into something sick. I can't. Sarah." Jake turned her to face him. "Look at me." She couldn't meet his eyes, couldn't face the pity or the determination or whatever else she'd see there. "Sarah, look at me." She did. And what she saw wasn't pity. It was fury. Cold and controlled and absolutely unyielding. Calvin wants a fight. He'll get one. But he's not fighting you. He's fighting us. Me, you, Emma. And I promise you we will not lose. You can't promise that. Watch me. Tom shifted his weight. There's something else. Judge Hawkins sent word. He'll testify if you need him. Says he performed the marriage in good faith and saw no signs of coercion. That'll carry weight. And the Fletchers? Sarah asked. We'll testify too, Tom said. Mary's already writing down everything she remembers. Dates, times, what you said, how you acted. Building a record. Sarah's throat closed. Why are you doing this? Because Calvin Bennett is a snake and everyone knows it. They just needed someone brave enough to say it out loud. Tom tipped his hat. You did that. Now let us help finish it. He rode off. Jake and Sarah stood on the porch, watching him disappear into white. Emma's face appeared in the window, pressed against the glass. Watching them. Waiting. She's scared? Sarah said. So am I. You don't look it. Fear's not always loud. Sarah leaned against the porch rail. The cold bit through her dress, but she barely felt it. When I married James, I thought I knew what marriage meant. Partnership, love, building something together. She laughed bitterly. Then he died and I learned what it really meant. It meant being property, being nothing without a man's name. That's not what this marriage means. Isn't it? You gave me your name so I could hide behind it? So the law would protect me because it wouldn't protect me on my own. I gave you my name because you needed it and I had it to give. There's a difference. Is there? Sarah turned to him. Be honest. If I wasn't running from Calvin, if Emma wasn't in danger, would you have married me? Jake was quiet for a long moment. No. Probably not. The word hit like a fist. Sarah nodded, looked away. But, Jake continued, if I hadn't pulled you from that snow, you'd be dead. Emma too. And I'd be here alone, wondering if I could have done more. He moved closer. We both made choices we wouldn't have made otherwise. That doesn't make them wrong. It makes them necessary. Necessity isn't the same as wanting. No, it's not. Jake's voice softened. But sometimes necessity gives you something you didn't know you wanted until you had it. Sarah met his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I married you to keep you safe. But somewhere in the last month you stopped being a responsibility and started being... He stopped, shook his head. Never mind. Started being what? Something I don't want to lose. The words hung between them. Heavy, true, terrifying. Sarah opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Jake. The door burst open. Emma stood there, tears streaming down her face. Mama, Papa, come quick! They ran inside. Emma pointed to the window. In the distance, smoke rose black against white sky. Too much smoke. Too close. The Fletcher place, Jake said. He grabbed his coat, his rifle. Sarah caught his arm. It could be a trap. Probably is. Then don't go. Tom just risked his neck riding here in a blizzard to help us. I'm not leaving him to burn. Jake. He kissed her, fast and hard and desperate. Bar the door, load the shotgun. If anyone comes who isn't me or Tom, you shoot first and ask questions never. Then he was gone. Riding Belle hard toward the smoke. Sarah stood frozen, the taste of him still on her lips. Fear and something else tangled so tight she couldn't separate them. Mama? Emma's voice was small. Is Papa coming back? Sarah closed the door, dropped the bar, loaded the shotgun with shaking hands. Yes, she said. Yes, he is. She had to believe it, because the alternative was drowning. An hour passed, then 2. Sarah paced the cabin shotgun in hand, Emma silent in the corner. Every creak of wood sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind sounded like voices. "Tell me a story," Emma said suddenly. "What?" "Tell me a story. About Papa. Real Papa." Sarah set down the shotgun, sat beside her daughter, pulled her close. "Your real Papa was the strongest man I ever met. Not strong like he could lift heavy things. Strong like he could lift people's spirits when everything was dark." "Tell me about when you met him." Sarah smiled despite herself. "I was teaching at the school in Harlan. He came to fix the roof after a storm. Fell right through and landed in a pile of primers. He was so embarrassed. Covered in dust and broken books trying to apologize while the children laughed." "What did you do?" "I laughed too. Then I helped him up. Our hands touched and—" Sarah's voice caught. "I just knew. Knew he was good. Knew he was mine." "Do you miss him?" "Every day." "Do you think he's mad that we have Jake now?" Sarah turned Emma to face her. "Your real Papa loved you more than his own life. He would have done anything to keep you safe. Jake is keeping you safe. If your Papa can see us, I think he's grateful. I think he sent Jake to us." "Really?" "Really." Emma thought about this. "I love Jake, but I don't want to forget Papa." "You won't. I won't let you. We'll tell his stories, keep his memory alive, and Jake will help us." "How do you know?" "Because that's what good men do." The sound of hoofbeats cut through the silence. Multiple horses. Coming fast. Sarah grabbed the shotgun, moved Emma behind her, positioned herself by the window where she could see without being seen. 3 riders, Jake in the lead on Belle. Behind him, Tom Fletcher, and a third man Sarah didn't recognize. Older, gray-bearded, wearing a badge. Sarah opened the door as they dismounted. Jake's face was soot-stained, his coat singed, he limped slightly. "What happened?" "Fletcher barn's gone. House is damaged but standing. Everyone got out safe." Jake gestured to the bearded man. "This is Marshal Garrett, federal marshal out of Cheyenne." The marshal tipped his hat. "Ma'am." Sarah's blood went cold. Did Calvin?" "No," Marshal Garrett said. "I'm not here for Calvin Bennett. I'm here because of him." "I don't understand." "May we come inside? It's a long story and it's colder than a banker's heart out here." They filed in. Tom Fletcher looked exhausted. Jake moved to the fire, warming his hands. Marshal Garrett declined coffee but accepted a chair. "Mrs. Mercer," the marshal began. "Sarah, just Sarah." "Sarah, I've been tracking Calvin Bennett for 3 months now, not for what he's doing to you, for what he did before you." Sarah sat down slowly. "Before me?" "Calvin's father was a bastard. Pardon my language, but he was. Built his fortune on the backs of miners and didn't care who died doing it. When he passed 5 years ago, he left everything to Calvin's older brother, your husband, James. I know this story. You know part of it. What you don't know is that 3 men died in suspicious mine collapses in the 2 years before James. All 3 were obstacles to Calvin gaining control. All 3 died right after refusing to sell their claims." Sarah's hand went to her throat. "You're saying—" "I'm saying Calvin has a pattern, a history, and James was just the latest victim." "Can you prove it?" Marshal Garrett's expression darkened. "That's the problem. Calvin's smart. He covers his tracks, uses intermediaries, makes it look like accidents. I've been building a case for months, but every witness disappears or recants or suddenly can't remember what they saw. So why are you here? Because the fire tonight wasn't an accident. It was a message. Calvin's getting desperate, making mistakes, and desperate men do sloppy things." The marshal leaned forward. "I need your help. I need you to testify. Everything Calvin's done, everything he threatened. I need it on record." "He'll kill her," Jake said flatly. "Not if I arrest him first." "On what charges?" "You just said you can't prove the murders." "I can prove intimidation, harassment, attempted kidnapping, It's not murder, but it's enough to hold him. And once he's locked up, people talk. People who were too scared before suddenly find their courage. Sarah looked at Tom. Your barn, your family, that was because of us. That was because of Calvin, Tom said, and I want him to pay. If I testify, he'll destroy me. He'll drag every painful moment of my life into public record. He'll make me sound insane. Let him try, Marshall Garrett said. I've read the Kentucky court documents. I've talked to people who knew you and James. You're not insane. You're a survivor, and juries respond to survivors. What if they don't? What if Calvin wins? Then we appeal, and we keep appealing until justice sticks. The marshal's voice was hard. I've been a lawman for 20 years. I've seen bad men walk free and good people hang. I'm tired of it. This is one I can win, but only if you're brave enough to stand up. Sarah looked at Emma, at Jake, at the life they'd built in 4 weeks, fragile and precious and worth fighting for. What do you need me to do? Marshall Garrett smiled. Tell the truth, all of it. No holding back, no protecting his reputation or worrying about looking proper. Just truth raw and ugly. When? The hearing in Cheyenne, March 15th. Calvin's lawyers will tear into you. I won't lie about that, but I'll be there. Judge Hawkins will be there, and Jake will be there. Sarah looked at Jake. He nodded. Every step. And Emma? She'll need to testify too, just briefly, about what she remembers, what she saw. She's 7 years old. I know, and I hate asking, but her testimony, a child's testimony, carries weight. Juries believe children. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. She's been through enough. I know, but this is how we end it. This is how we make sure Calvin never hurts anyone again. The cabin fell silent. Fire crackled. Wind howled. Outside, winter pressed down like a judgment waiting to be rendered. I'll do it, Sarah said finally. But if anything happens to Emma because of this, nothing will happen to her. I give you my word. Words are easy. Protection is hard. Then I'll give you both. Marshall Garrett stood. I'll post deputies around your property until the hearing. Calvin won't get within a mile without us knowing. And after, if he's acquitted, he won't be. But if he is, the marshal met her eyes. Then Jake was right to teach you how to shoot, because sometimes the law fails, and all we have left is ourselves. He left with Tom Fletcher. Jake barred the door behind them, turned to find Sarah standing in the middle of the cabin, arms wrapped around herself, shaking. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't stand in front of strangers and tell them everything. About James. About Calvin in Emma's room. About running and starving and... Her voice broke. I can't. Jake crossed to her, pulled her into his arms, held her while she fell apart for the second time that night. You don't have to do this, he said into her hair. The marshal said, I don't care what he said. If you can't do it, we'll find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. Sarah pulled back, looked at him through tears. Like what running we tried that. It almost killed us. Fighting Calvin has more money and more men and we have truth and courage and each other. Jake cupped her face. But if you can't testify, I understand. We'll disappear, change our names, go somewhere he'll never find us. And live our whole lives looking over our shoulders. If that's what it takes. No. Sarah's voice hardened. No. I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. If standing in front of a judge and telling my story is what it takes to end this, then that's what I'll do. Sarah. I'm not brave, Jake. I'm not strong. But I'm stubborn. And I'm angry. And I will not let that man take one more thing from me. Pride and fear warred across Jake's face. All right, then we do this together. Together. They stood there holding each other, drawing strength from shared determination. Behind them, Emma watched from the shadows. 7 years old and already understanding that sometimes the only way through hell is straight ahead. The weeks before the hearing passed in a blur of preparation. Marshal Garrett visited 3 times, taking statements, preparing Sarah for what to expect. Jake drilled her on staying calm, on answering only what was asked, on not letting Calvin's lawyers bait her into anger. Emma practiced her testimony with a gentleness that broke Sarah's heart. The marshal would ask simple questions. Where did you live before Wyoming? Who was Calvin Bennett? Did he ever make you uncomfortable? Emma's answers were quiet but clear. Yes, he scared me. Yes, he came into my room. Yes, Mama said we had to run. Judge Hawkins sent a letter of support. Tom and Mary Fletcher did the same. Even old Silas the trapper Jake mentioned wrote a statement saying he'd hidden runaway women before, and Sarah had the look of someone genuinely fleeing danger, not staging a scene. But as March 15th approached, Sarah's nightmares got worse. She'd wake gasping, sure Calvin was standing over her bed. Sure Emma was gone. Sure everything they'd built was crumbling. Jake stayed with her through the worst nights, held her hand, reminded her to breathe, promised her again and again that he wouldn't let anything happen to them. What if I freeze up there? Sarah asked one night. What if I can't get the words out? Then I'll speak for you. You can't. You weren't there. I'll tell them what I found. A woman and child half dead in my pasture, running from something so terrible they chose freezing over facing it. That's truth enough. Calvin's lawyers will say I'm manipulating you, using Emma to gain sympathy and a home. Let them say it. Anyone who looks at you and sees manipulation is blind. Sarah wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that truth and justice would prevail. But she'd learned the hard way that the world didn't reward goodness. It rewarded power. And Calvin had so much power. The night before they left for Cheyenne, Sarah couldn't sleep at all. She sat by the fire watching shadows dance, thinking about everything that could go wrong. Jake found her there at 3 in the morning. You should rest. Can't. He sat beside her, didn't speak, just shared the silence. I'm afraid, Sarah said finally. I know. Not of Calvin, not of the trial. I'm afraid of... She stopped, started again. I'm afraid of what comes after. If we win, we're free. But we're also stuck, married, bound by law to each other. And I don't... Her voice cracked. I don't know if I can be a real wife to you, if I can give you what you deserve. Jake was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you think I deserve? Someone who chooses you, not someone forced into your life by circumstance. You chose me. That night you walked out of the barn and faced down Calvin. You chose me then. I chose survival. No, Jake turned her to face him. You chose to trust me with your daughter's life, with your own life. That's not survival. That's faith. Faith in what? In me. In us. In the possibility that maybe 2 broken people can build something whole together. Sarah's eyes filled. I'm not whole. I'm damaged. Used up. Calvin made sure everyone knows it. You're a woman who survived things that would have killed most people. That's not damaged. That's tempered. Jake's voice was fierce. Steel gets stronger when it's heated and hammered. You're steel, Sarah. And I'd be honored to stand beside you, broken pieces and all. Why do you care so much? Because I see you. Not the widow Calvin wants you to be. Not the victim the law sees. I see a mother who'd walk through hell for her child. A woman who shoots straight and thinks fast and doesn't give up even when she should. He touched her face. I see someone worth fighting for. Sarah closed her eyes. Let the words sink in. Let herself believe just for a moment that she was worth more than the sum of her tragedies. If we win, she whispered, if Calvin goes away and we're safe, what happens to us? Whatever you want. What if I want to stay married for real? Jake's breath caught. Do you? I don't know. Maybe. Someday. She opened her eyes. I can't promise love. I can't promise I'll ever be ready for everything marriage means, but I can promise I'll try, if you're patient. I've got nothing but patience. And if I can't, if I'm too broken to, then we stay married on paper and nothing more. I won't ask for what you can't give." Sarah searched his face, saw truth there, saw acceptance, saw the kind of goodness she thought died with James. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For being you." Jake smiled, pulled her close. They sat together until dawn broke, neither sleeping, both drawing strength from the other's presence. When the sun rose, they woke Emma, packed their few belongings, saddled the horses. Marshal Garrett's deputies met them at the property line, ready to escort them to Cheyenne. Sarah looked back at the cabin one last time, at the home they'd built from desperation and snow, at the life waiting for them if they could just survive one more battle. "Ready?" Jake asked. She took his hand, took Emma's hand, held both tight. "Ready." They rode toward Cheyenne, toward justice or ruin, toward an ending or a beginning. Sarah didn't know which waited for them, but for the first time since James died, she wasn't riding alone. She had Jake's strength beside her, Emma's trust behind her, and her own stubborn refusal to let Calvin win burning in her chest like fire. Whatever came, they'd face it together, as a family, broken and patched and held together by promises that started false but had grown real somewhere along the way. The territorial courthouse rose ahead, stone and judgment. Sarah's heart hammered. Emma squeezed her hand. "It's going to be okay, Mama." "How do you know?" "Because Papa promised, and Papa keeps his promises." Sarah looked at Jake. He looked back, nodded once. Then they dismounted and walked through the courthouse doors into the light, into the fight, into whatever future they'd carve from truth and courage, and the kind of love that grows in winter and blooms in spring. The courtroom smelled of wood polish and old paper. Sarah sat in the front row, Jake on one side, Emma on the other. Behind them, Judge Hawkins, Tom, and Mary Fletcher, and a dozen neighbors who'd made the journey to stand witness. Across the aisle, Calvin sat flanked by two lawyers in expensive suits. He didn't look at Sarah, didn't acknowledge her existence, just stared straight ahead like she was already erased. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Judge Morrison was younger than Sarah expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He took his seat, shuffled papers, then looked directly at Calvin. "Mr. Bennett, you've challenged the legitimacy of a legal marriage performed in this territory. That's a serious accusation. I hope you have evidence to support it." Calvin's lead lawyer stood. Tall man, silver hair, voice like honey over gravel. "Your Honor, we have substantial evidence that this marriage was fraudulent from inception. Mrs. Bennett, excuse me, Mrs. Mercer married Mr. Mercer solely to evade my client's legal guardianship of his niece. This was conspiracy pure and simple. And your evidence. The timeline, Your Honor. Mrs. Bennett fled Kentucky in January with a child who was under court-ordered custody. She arrived in Wyoming Territory in February half dead from exposure. Within 1 week of being rescued by Mr. Mercer, they were married. 1 week. No courtship. No proper engagement. Just a rushed ceremony designed to circumvent the law. Judge Morrison looked at Sarah. "Mrs. Mercer, is this accurate? Did you marry Mr. Mercer 1 week after meeting him?" Sarah stood. Her legs shook, but her voice held. "Yes, Your Honor." "And was this marriage contracted for the purpose of evading custody orders?" "It was contracted to protect my daughter from a man who intended her harm." Calvin's lawyer smiled. "Your Honor, Mrs. Bennett has made numerous unfounded accusations against my client. Claims of harassment, intimidation even, and I apologize for the indelicacy implied inappropriate behavior toward the child. But she has provided no evidence, no witnesses, nothing but the paranoid delusions of a widow overcome by grief." Marshal Garrett. Judge Morrison turned to where the marshal sat. "You investigated these claims?" Marshal Garrett stood. "I did, Your Honor. While I cannot yet prove murder charges against Mr. Bennett regarding his brother's death, I have documented evidence of harassment, intimidation, and witness tampering. Mr. Bennett hired men to track Mrs. Bennett across 3 states. He destroyed property belonging to Mr. Mercer. He made explicit threats regarding custody. This is not paranoia. This is pattern." Documented how? Witness statements, telegraph records, testimonies from the hired men Mr. Bennett employed, 2 of whom have agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. Calvin's lawyer's smile faded. "Your Honor, these men are criminals looking to avoid prosecution. Their testimony is worthless." "I'll determine what's worthless, counsel." Judge Morrison's voice went cold. "Continue, Marshal." Marshal Garrett pulled out a folder. 3 weeks ago, the Fletcher Ranch neighbors to the Mercers was burned. Arson. The perpetrator left a calling card. A Kentucky coin minted in Harlan County, Mr. Bennett's hometown. That same night, Mr. Bennett was seen in town buying supplies and making inquiries about the Mercer property. "That proves nothing," the lawyer said. "Circumstantial at best. Chalatia." "Then let's talk about James Bennett's death." Marshal Garrett's voice cut like a blade. 3 years ago, Michael Carson died in a mine collapse. 6 months before that, Robert Finch. 6 months before that, Samuel Price. All 3 men owned claims adjacent to Bennett family holdings. All 3 refused to sell. All 3 died in what were ruled accidental collapses. The courtroom went silent. Calvin's face remained impassive, but his hands clenched on the table. After each death, Calvin Bennett acquired the claims. Through legal transfers, foreclosures, or purchases from grieving widows at far below market value. Marshal Garrett stepped forward. James Bennett was the 4th. He refused to sell his claim to his brother. 2 weeks later, he died in a collapse that veteran miners called suspicious. Calvin Bennett inherited guardianship of James's daughter and control of the claim worth $2,000. "Your Honor, this is character assassination." Calvin's lawyer objected. "None of this has been proven. These are conspiracy theories from a federal marshal with a vendetta. Or they're facts from a lawman doing his job." Judge Morrison looked at Calvin. "Mr. Bennett, do you wish to testify?" Calvin stood, smooth, confident. "Your Honor, I loved my brother. His death devastated our family. The accusations being made here are offensive and baseless. I sought custody of Emma because Sarah was not capable of caring for her. She fled Kentucky in the middle of winter with no plan, no resources, nearly killing them both. That's not paranoia on my part. That's reality. And the marriage, your opinion on its legitimacy. It's fraud, Your Honor. A desperate woman convinced a lonely rancher to marry her to avoid legal consequences. I feel for Mr. Mercer. He seems like a decent man who was manipulated by someone skilled at playing victim." Jake's hand clenched on Sarah's. She felt his rage carefully contained. Judge Morrison turned to Sarah. "Mrs. Mercer, I'd like to hear your version. In your own words. Why did you run? Why did you marry? And why should I believe you over a man with legal standing and court approval?" Sarah stood. The room swam for a moment. She felt every eye on her, judging, weighing, deciding if she was worth believing. "I ran because I was afraid. Not of poverty or hardship. I was afraid Calvin would take my daughter and I'd never see her again. Afraid he'd hurt her the way I believed he hurt James. You have proof your husband was murdered." "No, Your Honor. Just instinct. Just knowing James would never be careless in a mine. Just knowing he changed shifts the night he died because Calvin asked him to. Just knowing Calvin smiled at the funeral while I cried. That's not evidence. No, it's not." Sarah's voice strengthened. "But evidence is what I found Calvin doing 3 weeks after James died. Standing in Emma's bedroom at midnight, watching her sleep. When I confronted him, he said he had a right, that she was his responsibility now. Did anyone else witness this? No, he made sure we were alone. Then it's your word against his. Yes. Sarah looked directly at Calvin. Just like it was my word when I told the sheriff he was threatening me. My word when I told the pastor he was trying to take Emma. My word when I stood in front of the town council and begged for help. Her voice shook with controlled fury. No one believed me then. Everyone believed Calvin, the respectable banker, the concerned uncle, and I had to choose between being right and being alive. So you ran. So I ran, with my 7-year-old daughter, in January, with $20 and the clothes on our backs. Does that sound like someone making a calculated move? Or does it sound like someone so terrified she chose freezing to death over staying? Judge Morrison was quiet for a moment. And Mr. Mercer, how did you meet him? He found us buried in snow. We hadn't eaten in 5 days. Emma was barely conscious. He pulled us out, took us to his ranch, fed us, sheltered us, asked for nothing. And you married him a week later. I married him because Calvin found us. Came to Jake's ranch with hired guns and court papers. Said he'd take Emma by force if necessary. Sarah's voice broke. I married Jake because it was the only way to protect my daughter. Because Wyoming law says a husband has more rights than an uncle. Because I had no other options. But you did have options. You could have gone to authorities here, filed your own custody claim. With what, Your Honor? I was a penniless widow with no proof and no standing. Calvin had money lawyers and a court order from Kentucky. What chance did I have against that? Judge Morrison turned to Jake. Mr. Mercer, why did you agree to this marriage? Jake stood. Because it was right. Elaborate. Hey. I found a woman and child dying in my pasture. I helped them because that's what decent people do. When Calvin showed up threatening them, I stepped between. When he wouldn't back down, I married Sarah to give her legal protection. Simple as that. You married a woman you'd known 1 week. I've known men my whole life and wouldn't trust them with $1. I knew Sarah's character the moment I pulled her from that snow. She hadn't given up. Hadn't stopped protecting her daughter even when she was too weak to stand. That told me everything. And now, is this marriage real or just legal fiction? Jake looked at Sarah. She looked back. A whole conversation passed between them in silence. It's real, Jake said quietly. Maybe it didn't start that way. Maybe we got married for the wrong reasons. But somewhere between then and now it became real. How do you define real? I define it as me willing to die before I let anyone hurt them. I define it as Sarah standing beside me through hell without flinching. I define it as Emma calling me Papa and meaning it. Jake's voice hardened. And I define it as Calvin Bennett having no claim, no right, and no future anywhere near my family. Calvin's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is emotional manipulation. The marriage remains fraudulent regardless of how they feel now. The law is clear. The law is also clear that marriages contracted in good faith are valid even if motivations were practical rather than romantic. Judge Morrison looked at Calvin. Mr. Bennett, I've heard enough. Unless you have concrete evidence this marriage was coerced or illegal, I'm inclined to uphold its validity. Your Honor, do you have such evidence? Calvin's lawyer hesitated. We have testimony that Mrs. Bennett is mentally unstable, that she's prone to delusions and paranoia, that she's unfit to care for a child. From whom? Dr. Richardson. He treated Mrs. Bennett in Kentucky after her husband's death. He'll testify she showed signs of breakdown. Call him. An older man took the stand. White hair, expensive suit, the look of someone used to being believed. He swore his oath and sat. Dr. Richardson, you treated Sarah Bennett? I did. After her husband's death, she came to my office claiming she couldn't sleep, that she was seeing things, hearing voices, classic symptoms of grief-induced psychosis. Sarah's blood went cold. She'd never seen this man in her life. That's a lie, she said. Mrs. Mercer, you'll have your chance to respond. Judge Morrison turned back to the doctor. You have records of this treatment. I do. He produced papers. 3 visits in November. Each time she was increasingly agitated, paranoid, making wild accusations against her brother-in-law. Let me see those. Marshal Garrett took the papers, examined them. His expression darkened. Your Honor, these are forgeries. The paper is too new, the ink's barely dry, and the signature, he held it up. That's not Sarah's handwriting. How would you know her handwriting? Because I have her actual signature on statements she gave me. He pulled out his own papers, set them side by side. Not even close. Dr. Richardson paled. There must be some mistake. The only mistake is you lying under oath. Marshal Garrett's voice was ice. How much did Calvin pay you? I object to this line of, how much? The doctor looked at Calvin. Calvin's expression betrayed nothing, but the doctor broke. $500. He said it was to help protect a child from an unstable mother. I thought I was doing the right thing. You thought $500 was the right thing. Marshal Garrett turned to the judge. Your Honor, this is exactly what I've been documenting. Witness tampering. Fraud. Calvin Bennett will do anything, pay anyone to get what he wants. Judge Morrison's face was stone. Mr. Bennett, stand. Calvin stood, still smooth, still confident, but something flickered in his eyes. Fear. I'm dismissing this challenge. The marriage between Sarah Bennett and Jacob Mercer is legal and binding. Your custody claim is void. You are to have no contact with Emma Bennett, now Emma Mercer, or her parents. Am I clear? Your Honor, this is done. Am I clear? Calvin's jaw clenched. Yes. Furthermore, I'm remanding you to Marshal Garrett's custody pending investigation into multiple charges, including fraud, witness tampering, and suspected involvement in your brother's death. You can't do this. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Judge Morrison banged his gavel. Marshal, take him. Marshal Garrett moved forward. Calvin backed away. His hand went to his coat, to where a gun might be hidden. Don't, Jake said. He'd moved without Sarah noticing, stood between Calvin and his family, Winchester leveled. Don't even think it. Calvin looked at the rifle, at Jake's face, at the absolute certainty in his eyes. Slowly, he raised his hands. Marshal Garrett cuffed him, led him away. Calvin looked back once at Sarah. His expression was pure hatred. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Sarah replied. You lost, accept it, and rot quietly. He was gone. The courtroom erupted in noise, people talking, congratulating the Fletchers, hugging Sarah. Judge Hawkins shaking Jake's hand. Emma buried against her mother, crying with relief. Judge Morrison waited until the noise died. Mrs. Mercer, I owe you an apology. The law failed you in Kentucky. It nearly failed you here. That's unacceptable. You made it right, Your Honor. That's what matters. Nevertheless, he stood. If you need anything, legal protection resources, anything, you send word. Wyoming takes care of its own. Thank you. They left the courthouse into afternoon sun. The winter was breaking, spring coming. Sarah stood on the steps, Jake beside her, Emma between them, and felt something she hadn't felt in a year. Safe. Not the temporary safety of hiding, not the desperate safety of running, but the deep, bone-certain safety of being protected by law and love, and a man who'd promised to keep her and meant it. What happens now? Emma asked. Now we go home, Jake said. And then we live. They rode back to the ranch in silence. Comfortable silence. The kind that comes from shared victory and mutual exhaustion. When the cabin came into view, Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Home. It was home now. Not Jake's place they were borrowing. Not a shelter from the storm. Home. Inside, everything was as they left it. Fire cold in the stove. Blankets folded. Table set for meals that would be eaten in peace now. No more watching the horizon for riders. No more sleeping with guns loaded. No more fear. Emma ran to her corner, to the nest of blankets and the slate Jake gave her, started drawing. Jake stoked the fire. Sarah stood in the center of the cabin and let herself feel everything she'd held back: relief, exhaustion, gratitude, and something else. Something warm and terrifying and wonderful. Hope. Sarah. Jake's voice was soft. You all right? She turned to him. This man who'd saved her life and asked nothing. Who'd married her to keep her safe. Who'd faced down a killer with nothing but courage and a promise to a 7-year-old girl. I'm more than all right. Yeah. She crossed to him, took his hands. Jake Mercer, you gave me your name when I needed it. Your home when I had none. Your protection when the world said I deserved none. You stood between me and evil and didn't flinch. Sarah, I know I can't give you everything, not yet, maybe not ever, but I can give you truth. She met his eyes. I choose you, not because I have to, not because the law says I'm yours, but because you're good and decent, and you make me want to be brave. Jake's breath caught. You're already brave. Then you make me want to stay that way. She touched his face. I don't know if I'll ever stop loving James. I don't know if I can be everything a wife should be, but I know I want to try, with you. That's enough. That's more than enough. She kissed him. Soft, tentative. The first kiss that wasn't performance or desperation. Just two people finding comfort in each other. Jake's arms came around her, held her close, held her like she was precious. When they pulled apart, Emma was watching. Are you and Papa really married now? Like married? Sarah laughed through tears. Yeah, sweet pea. Married. Good, because I like it here. I like having a papa who doesn't go away. I'm not going anywhere, Jake promised. Ever. Emma nodded, satisfied, went back to her drawing. That night they ate together. Real meal. Jake shot a rabbit that afternoon. Sarah made stew. They sat at the table, their table, and talked about spring planting. About fixing the barn door. About teaching Emma to read better. Normal things. Future things. After Emma went to sleep, Sarah and Jake sat by the fire. Not touching, just being. You know, Sarah said, when I was buried in that snow, I prayed. First time I'd prayed in months. I asked God for one more day, just enough time to make sure Emma survived. He gave you more than a day. He gave me you. She looked at him. I don't believe in accidents. I think James sent you. Somehow. Some way. He made sure we found the one man in Wyoming who'd help us, no questions asked. Maybe he did. Do you believe that? Jake was quiet for a long moment. I believe good men leave marks on the world. I believe love doesn't die just because hearts stop. And I believe that if James could pick someone to protect his family, he'd pick someone who'd die before failing them. You almost did die, several times. Worth it. How can you say that? Because I spent 3 years killing strangers because someone told me to. Spent the 10 years after trying to forget the things I did. And then you and Emma showed up and gave me something worth protecting instead of destroying. Jake's voice was rough. You gave me purpose. You gave me family. You gave me a reason to be the man my father wanted me to be. Sarah leaned against him. He wrapped an arm around her. They sat like that for hours, watching the fire, planning tomorrow, building something real from something that started false. Outside, winter finally broke. Snow melted. Green pushed through brown. Spring came like a promise kept. And inside the cabin on the Wyoming plains, a widow, a rancher, and a 7-year-old girl who'd lost everything built something new. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. earned through blood and snow, and the kind of courage that comes from having nothing left to lose and everything left to fight for. Months later, Sarah would stand in that same cabin flower on her hands, watching Jake teach Emma to ride, watching her daughter laugh without fear, watching her husband, her real husband, smile in that quiet way of his. And she'd think about that day in the snow, about dying and being saved, about running and finally stopping. She'd think about James, about the life they had, about the love that built her. And she'd whisper, "Thank you, for loving her enough to let her go, for sending Jake, for giving her permission to be happy again." Then she'd go back to making bread, to living, to loving this new family that started in desperation and grew into something neither Jake nor Sarah expected, but both desperately needed. Because sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments. Sometimes salvation looks like a stranger on horseback. Sometimes family is built not from blood, but from choice and courage, and two people deciding that broken together is better than whole alone. And sometimes when a widow whispers she hasn't eaten in 5 days, the right man gives her bread, and his name, and a future worth surviving for, proving that even in the coldest winter, even in the darkest moment, even when death seems certain, love finds a way to take root and bloom and grow into something beautiful enough to last forever.